what skill sets, either in engineering, technology, computer science, any sort of field, what skill sets do you think of that are going to be so relevant in the near future? Maybe they're already
Yeah.
relevant, but even more relevant 5, 10, 15 years from now. Like, what skill sets are going to be needed to grow the type of technologies that are going to exist 20 years from now?
Yeah, when you first reached out to me and talked to me about potentially doing this podcast, this was one of the questions or the ideas that really sort of stuck with me, or I spent the most time thinking about. And so I have some friends that are in academia, and I went to them and sort of asked them, what are the skills that the university or the college you work at, what are they focusing on for the future? And did some independent research, really spent a lot of time thinking about this. Um, and I don't know that they're going to drastically, the kind of the core tools in engineering and skill sets. I don't think that they're going to change tremendously over the next 5 or 10 years. What I think is going to be as important or more important, I guess increasingly important, is sort of that technical literacy or that information literacy. So these tools, whether it be AI, machine learning, whatever the case may be, they're only going to become more and more powerful and more useful, and frankly, better tools. But the ability to manage those tools or understand sort of the deeper understanding is going to be, incredibly important. And that's something, I think if you if you talk to people, who are fresh out of college, maybe a year or two, uh, or up to 10 years, if you ask them what they learn in college, if they weren't to going to school to be a doctor or a lawyer, what did you learn? Sort of what outside of what your major was, what did you learn in college? And I think a lot of people would say it was the ability to think critically, or the ability to solve problems. And I think the ability to or the sort of the intent or focus to make that more and more a part of our lives is going to be more and more important, as this technology becomes more powerful and can do things for us. So, when I was thinking about this the other night, thinking about our upcoming conversation the other night, I thought back to uh, when I first got at the internet in my house. If I could go back and talk to that person about, um, if I could go back and talk to myself about, what would you tell yourself 20 years ago when you were first discovering the internet, and
Oh my
what's
gosh.
important to know now that we have 20, 25 years of experience in dealing with these tools. I don't think it's that different from sort of the evolution or introduction of AI into our lives. As I sort of mentioned to you before we started, I look at the growth and evolution of AI and machine learning on the same scale as the invention of the internet or the invention of electricity. So I think back to, I was alive, I was cognizant. I wasn't very smart yet, but when the internet, came around, what do I wish I knew back then, and how can I apply that to AI and machine learning now? Since that is almost unquestionably going to be an exponential part of our lives. And as I spent time thinking about that, it was um, sort of that information or technological literacy and the ability to understand this tool and how to use it. I think is going to be the most important thing that future generations and even current generations need to learn and develop. Because doctors aren't going away, engineers aren't going away. The people that build these tools, obviously, that's going to be continue to grow and be an important part of the workforce in our society going forward. I don't see a paradigm shift in creating sort of these jobs we've never heard of. What I see is the importance of this is only going to continue to grow. We don't know what it's going to look like, so we really need to have that technological literacy, um, to be able to understand what we should do, what we shouldn't do, how it works, all of those things. So that's really sort of what struck me when I first started thinking about all this.
So, what you just said, you pretty much summed up like the whole theme of this podcast, which is really cool. There's been really few people who've really understood what I'm doing. Yeah, they
Yeah,
see they say human machine interface. That's the theme of the podcast, human machine interface, and then really how humans can leverage machines, whether it be a software tool or a manufacturing equipment, aircraft, spacecraft, ground vehicles, submersibles. How can we use machines to leverage human abilities? And I think you are the first person, like one of the few people that when I told about the podcast, you understood it. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, this guy gets it. I think you and like two other people that I talked to when it's still early on, but I was like,
yeah,
okay, Tim understands the theme because in the future there'll be all these AI tools, and I totally agree with you. I think this is akin to the invention of electricity or the internet. And if I close my eyes and think about loading that CD-ROM, that AOL free CD-ROM that you got at
that you
Blockbuster
got in the mail.
or in the mail. They were
Yeah,
sending
we
them
got
out
a
to everyone.
yeah.
I mean, I close my eyes, I can picture that piece of cardboard in my hand, and I load it into uh, the CD-ROM drive,
Yep.
and then then you have the Ethernet plug-in. We only had one phone line, so we had to unplug our phone.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of the kids of the new generation won't remember any of this stuff because they weren't alive. But and then so you unplug your phone, plug the Ethernet cable in, load the software, and then you saw a key. It was just a golden key, like an
Yep.
old school key with, very, very large faces, and then a lightning bolt or some sort of electrical signal, and then this crazy, like, digital sound.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you've got mail.